Hi, everybody. You are going to get some instruction on the usage of the iProfile and the printouts that you will need to answer the questions on the analyses that are coming up, as well as the printouts that you're going to attach to the analyses. So, where you're going to start is you're going to go to the website that is found on the card that that contains the reg code. And if you don't have that card handy, just Google Wiley and iProfile, and then you should be able to get to this page. So once you're here, you're going to put in your credentials and realize if you're new, then you're going to do the first time user registration. Just to show you how that works, this is where you're going to put in all your information and then put in the registration code. So let's see, going back. Okay, so once you have your email and password in, you're going to hit login and you will get to this page. This is a really nice instruction page because it will tell you kind of exactly some of the capabilities of the iProfile. And I would recommend doing this guided tour just so that you can get a sense of how the iProfile works. So take the time to do that before you start anything. Just go ahead and read this stuff about the iProfile Mobile. If you've loaded the app onto your device, then you pretty much already kind of know about it. But if you haven't heard about the mobile app, then this might be a good section to go over. So how you're going to start is you can see I've already begun a fictional profile. So going to the profile, this is where I have already put in the information for this person. And for if you are sharing your registration code, this is where the new person is going to create the new profile and then put in their information for their profile. What I recommend is when you're here, I would go ahead and do what is my activity level. This is going to really help you try to figure out, well, let's see if I move it into the this is going to help you figure out what activity level you are basically displaying. And so one of the things that happens is students often overestimate how active they are. Um, Really, sometimes these programs will be too generous for these different activity levels. So I would kind of go one down. So if you think you're very active, I would go down to active, but you could just kind of play around. Do go through and use the very active, let's say, and then compare your results for the very active category with the active category and kind of see what happens. Okay, so once you've created the profile, you are going to save the changes. So I haven't made any changes, but I'll go ahead and show you how to save changes. And so then you are going to go to Food Journal. So the Food Journal is essentially the starting point for what you need to have uh, printed out. So as you can see, I've already input some information from February 6th. And so let's say I wanted to add some info to this um, date. Let's say I just remembered that I forgot something. So that's kind of an interesting contrast. Remember that I forgot something. Anyway, let's say additionally to the things that you see in this journal part, let's say I ate, say chicken. And I'm going to hit search and I'm going to try to choose the closest thing to what I consumed. This is a really exhaustive list, you'll see. And so it's going to take you a while to find the exact chicken because everything's going to come up that has the word chicken in it. What I would do is way back up, when you see a huge list like this, go back and kind of specify. Maybe you could say roasted chicken, see what comes up, and then hopefully the list will be shorter. If you also want to put a brand name, it looks like they have some brand names in there. So hit search, and then you can really narrow down what options you have. So let's say I ate that, and I'm going to add that to dinner. So obviously your dates are going to be different than mine. You're going to basically follow your food journal that you have kept. And so also, just for illustration purposes, I added a second day so that I could show you what is going to happen when you have a date range. Your printouts are going to need to cover your date range that you kept track. So for my date range, I started on the 6th and I ended on the 7th. Realize that's only 2 days, right? You are going to have 7 days that you're going to highlight. So you're going to have, let's say, the 10th, and let's say you go to the 19th. Okay, so here's my food journal for each of those days. Once you have your food journals in for each day, you are then going to go ahead and let's see, where did that go? You're then going to, oh, I guess one thing I should tell you too is if you really want to be accurate with your diet project, you can create a new recipe, which is really nice. Um, I've had students do this, and what they end up with is a really nice, accurate picture of their diet because they're actually putting in their own created recipes. So you can kind of go through and read about how to add a recipe. There's what I would do is just go to the help section and type in how to create a recipe, and then they will go ahead and tell you how to do it. So all this stuff down here, like my plate values, exchange values, I don't think you need to do anything with that when you create your recipe. So I wouldn't need to, I wouldn't have you worry about that. So going back to the journal, another thing I wanted to show you is where you can create a new food item. Let's say you cannot find the exact food item in that exhaustive list. You can come down here and create a new one, and you will actually have this screen where you can put all the info about it. Now, the thing is that if you have consumed a food that is not in a box or package that has all this info, you'll just need to Google your food if it's a raw unprocessed food, and then kind of go through there as to what to put in all these different fields. So again, if there's a food, let's say I put in spinach, then I would look up spinach and I would try to, this stuff you can kind of also Google actually, and then you would put in all the information that you find from the website, from your Google search. Okay, so once you've got your 7 days of food journal, you can go to reports. But if you're interested in really maximizing your usage of this site, you can actually, just for your benefit, go to activity journal. And this is a place where you can actually put in activities, and then ultimately there is a printout for energy balance that you can kind of see whether your intake matches your output, or the benefit of this would be for someone, let's say, who is interested in knowing whether or not they are consuming too many calories or too few calories based on their activity. So I'm going to leave that up to you because actually I did put in my running just to see what would come up. But if you're interested in also finding out about your activity and how it relates to your intake, I'm going to leave it up to you to kind of navigate through that and figure out what you what you want to know. So for our purposes, once you put in your food journal, you are going to go ahead and print out the reports that are needed for your analyses. So the first one, I'm just going to give you a list of the reports that you're going to ultimately need. You're going to need the macronutrient distribution. And so what'll happen is you will get a PDF version of this, or the Excel version will come up if you hit Excel. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get the screen. I don't know if you can see this. You're going to get this Excel spreadsheet, which you can actually, what I would do if you choose this way, and actually it might be easier, just do a copy paste of your Excel spreadsheet, and then just put that into the handouts, so that you don't have to print out the PDFs and then figure out how to add the PDFs to your handouts that have those individual analyses. So it's kind of up to you, but I do think it's easier just to go ahead and do the Excel, and then when that spreadsheet comes up, go ahead and just copy paste that part to your handouts. So going back to this, you're going to need a macronutrient distribution, and just want to make sure that for pretty much all the reports that you're going to print out, you have to make sure that you have the date range specified. So for me, I would go from the 6th to the 7th. So I'm telling the program to analyze the information encompassing that range, and you got to be careful and do that too, because if you just do the 6th, let's say, to the 6th, what you're doing is you're just analyzing one day. So for you, obviously, you're going to have a span of more days than just me, but that's very important for pretty much all the printouts. So macronutrient distribution is necessary. Intake compared to DRI is going to be necessary. This one, I think you're not going to be able to do an Excel spreadsheet. You can see what it's like. What I would do is go to complete view and then hit PDF. I'm just out of just experiment. I just want to see what happens if I hit Excel. This might be the way to go. So if that comes up, oh, actually this might be an easier way to do it. You can just do a copy paste of this and then add it directly into your handout where you're going to be asked for this information. So yeah, I think that's the way to do it. So going back to this and the printouts you're going to need. So you have intake compared to DRI. Then you're going to have a bunch of these single nutrient ones. And when you hit that, reading the directions on the specific analyses handouts, you are going to be guided as to what single nutrient you are going to be looking for. So here's what you do. Again, I would do complete view. And then for the single nutrients, for example, I'm going to have you actually print out a single nutrient list for saturated fat. And you'll see that on the fat analysis handout. So you're going to hit saturated fat, and what's going to come up is all the foods you consumed over that range that contains saturated fat. And then again, the Excel versions that you can copy paste seem to be the best way to do the entire assignment. So basically, you're just going to go through and you will see this is really a nice list. There's a lot of different single nutrients that you can look for, and this might be just fun for you to go through. And let's say you're particularly worried about your iron intake. And then you could get a nice little list of the foods you ate over that period of time that contain the various amounts of iron. So for our purposes though, as you're going to see, you're going to see, um, you're going to actually need, let's see, let's bring this down. Okay, going back to single nutrient, saturated fat. Okay, so there's my saturated fat that you're going to have to print out. And then you'll see at each handout there will be a list of printouts that you will generate for each of the different analyses. So basically, when being asked for the single nutrient printouts, that is how you get there. This drop down, of course, pretty critical. You want to hit complete view, and then obviously you want to make sure that your calendars are a from date to a to date. So make sure there's two different dates. Also make sure that you've got all the meals checked. And this wizard thing, if you want to experiment with it, you can do that. I personally don't want to add any complexity, but it does seem that you can export this. Perhaps you can export this to one of the handouts that you're going to turn in. But in my opinion, keep life simple and just do the Excel method. And I think that's it. If you have decided to do the activity journal, and if you're in my Nutrition 14 class, you will need to do the activity journal. Nutrition 10 students don't need to do this, but it's just optional. So Nutrition 14 students, you will go ahead and put in your activities for each of those dates. Now the thing about the activity journals, if you notice, you can only do one day at a time. So the information that you get out is not really related to the range of dates so far, but to the individual days. So there's the 6th for me, then the 7th. That's what I did. So you will, if you're in my Nutrition 14, then that's where that's going to come out to play. The thing is, I'm not going to require you to print out the activity journals. The report that you're going to generate in my Nutrition 14, which is going to be one more than Nutrition 10, is this energy balance one. So this is the additional printout that Nutrition 14 has to provide. Now, Nutrition 14 students, you will have a list of the individual printouts also. So make sure you pay attention to the actual printouts that you need for each of the analyses that are coming up for you. So I think that covers everything. And if you have any questions, I would like you to try to find out the information yourself. But if you get stuck, then of course I'm available to help you out.